Hello everybody, and welcome back. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I have the promised 4v4 siege for you. This is going to be reenacting the first Kinslaying, the Siege of ALQUALONDE, and so it is going to pit exclusively Teleri and Noldor against each other. So there are a few rules pursuant to that sort of context that each side is going to have to abide by. For one, there's going to be no artillery here, because this is not exactly a planned siege. It was more of a spontaneous massacre. So there will be no artillery on either side, and that includes the artillery Maiar for the Teleri. Valinor, who of course will be on the defending side, they cannot use almost any. There are very few non-Teleri units that they are able to use. I think I've only got maybe one in my entire army, and some of the other guys I think have up to 3 non-Teleri units, just to help pad things out and fill it out a little bit more. Likewise, the House of Feanor faction is not able to use any of their human auxiliaries because they don't actually have them at this point in their history. And there is one Fingolfin player as well to sort of represent the additional Noldor from the House of Fingolfin, the followers of that brother, who showed up kind of partway through the siege and didn't really know what was going on, but kind of jumped in instead of looking before they leap. So that's the parameters of the battle. I think it's more or less standard funds for the defenders, so we've got 15k apiece, and we can maybe fill it out with Teleri as best as we're able. So let's take a look at some of the defending armies here, and then we can jump right into it. So I actually get to be in this game. Boris Soviet Lovehammer, and I've got, I believe, 4 to 5 units of the Swan Guard of ALQUALONDE. Not really any upgrades for them. I think maybe one has an attack upgrade. I've got some not Swan Guard. Where are they? Yes, there they are. The Mariners of ALQUALONDE. I think I've got 3 to 4 units of them. These are harassment javelins. Not exactly amazing at cutting through heavy armor that the House of Feanor is able to bring, but it's better than nothing. Certainly, it's one of the few anti-armor tools that the exclusively Teleri wing of Valinor has available to them. The other one being, of course, the Shoal Hunters. And I've got, I think, 2, maybe 3 Shoal Hunters. I think it's closer to 3. They are split-shot slings. They don't have the armor piercing of some other sling types, of the sort of generic type of sling, what you'd expect from a sling. But they do have that split shot, which splits into 3 projectiles total. So, 100 of these guys can put down 300 projectiles downrange at any given moment, which is very, very strong, especially when dealing with hordes and crowds. And after the fact, they've got a nice little one-handed mace in there, so they're going to be pretty decent light infantry. They've actually gotten a little bit of a buff in the new overhaul, so they're a bit more able to kind of go toe-to-toe when needed, just to encourage people to bring them a little bit more often for more than just the missile capability that they have, which is a little bit limited. Pardon me, I also have, I believe, 3 units of the Sentries of ALQUALONDE, little light bows. Don't really take a beating very well, but they do have, I think, slightly elevated damage stats. They're sitting at, I think it's 7 instead of 6. And this being really the only bow unit that Valinor has available to them, it's a little bit more appropriate for these guys. More of my Mariners are going to be hanging out there. More Shoal Hunters. And I think I've got, yes, so I've got 1 unit of the Adepts of Tulkas, who have an interesting projectile. One that does certainly have some uses in sieges. It's more of an area denial thing. What it will do is basically cause an explosion, essentially harmless explosion, in an area that will repeatedly knock things over for a period of about, I think it's 10 to 12 seconds. So basically a lifetime in an RTS, and can be used to disrupt enemy formations, cover retreats, things like that. So we'll see if I manage to get through a set of it today. That's going to be, of course, my General's Bodyguard. You can see A on me, hanging out there with his Maiar brethren. And I've got one other thing here. 2 others, in fact. I've got, those aren't my Shoal Runners, but I do have some. Got some Grieving Sons here, and that's going to be a legendary company for Valinor. They're, again, one of the other few anti-armor things that Teleri have available to them, or Valinor generally, is these guys right here. They've got Hunter Javelins, which makes them excellent at fighting monsters and heavy infantry. No monsters today, but certainly lots of the latter sort. And yeah, that's pretty much why they're here. They're a little bit of lore, I suppose, that we made up ourselves. Is that they're kind of the counterparts to the Accursed of ALQUALONDE, the Kinslayers of ALQUALONDE, if you like. And it's always fun to see them face off against each other in the battlefield. Certainly one of the bigger grudge matches internally within the rosters of the game. And I've got some shoal runners here, and I'm helping out my ally. Or I do have an ally nearby who I suppose is helping me out. I'm going to be forming kind of the front line here. More mariners, swan guard, and things like that, trying to guard all 4 of these approaches. And that's going to be a tough one, because there's quite a lot of rain against me, as you will see in a moment here. Let's see now. Next army, of course, is going to be the House of Valinor, played by Captain Gervais. I won't go into too much detail here. We're just going to quickly run through these, because they're basically all the same. Shoal Hunters of ALQUALONDE, he's got some Swan Guard here as well. Some Mariners, and some Plaza Guardians, one of the few non-Teleri units that we were permitted to bring. Really, really useful. Two-handed spear, but in practice, they're really more like a halberd with none of the particular downsides of being a halberd. So the Vanyar are very good at using their spears. One of the few things we actually know about the Vanyar is that they were sometimes called the Spear Elves. And it does have an armor-piercing component to it as well, and they are 2 HP. That being said, quite expensive. Grieving Sons, he's got his own set of them here. Some Sentries of ALQUALONDE of his own. And I think he's got some more stuff hanging out here. So a second unit of the Shoal Runners. I've got another one of my Bowmen up there as well. And I think that's pretty much it. The big set pieces here. Looks like that's sort of the King's Palace, the town center. And that's about it for Captain Jerry. So if there's anything else, I'm sure we'll see it throughout the game. Over here we have, again, Blessed Realm of Valinor. Surprise, surprise, being played by Nifridir the Shadow Hunter. He's got his own Shoal Hunters. Looks like they're hightailing it, maybe over across the bridge here. Not really wanting to fight on the front lines against the 2 Feanor factions, so I think we'll be assaulting that position. So 2 Sentries of ALQUALONDE. I've got some Mariners here. Second unit, there you go, of the Plaza Guardians of Valinor. So they're going to be hanging out, aiding in the defense of the here. So another piece from Captain Gervais. More Mariners, Nifridir Shadow Hunters, and Mariners of ALQUALONDE are over here as well. Some more Shoal Hunters from Mr. Gervais, and Swan Guards here as well. Nifridir the Shadow Hunter has yet more Swan Guard, as you would expect. Basically one of the only frontline units that the Teleri have. Depths of Tulkas from the other player, but we'll get into him in a moment. Just keep that in mind. Sentries of ALQUALONDE from him. Oh, looks like it's sort of bleeding over into Buzzard's army as well. So Adepts, Sentries, Grieving Sons. Everyone's got a little bit of Grieving Sons. 2 big units of them over there. Yeah, a lot of sad sons on the field today. Peacekeepers of Valinor from Nifridir the Shadow Hunter. Nifridir the Shadow Hunter's Spearmen. Low tier Spearmen. Oof, wow. This is quite the host raid. Looks like Buzzard has actually brought some of the Mire here. I'm not entirely sure this was allowed, but the Doomsman Mandos are a little bit interesting. They're not exactly a damage powerhouse, though they do have some armor piercing. They've got very low damage, very high melee defense, like extremely high melee defense. It does sort of count as being a 2-handed spear, which is always nice for fighting cavalry. Gives them a little bit of extra utility. But really their big thing is that they have a bomb, which is essentially a spell of sorts, called the Doom of Mandos. Something like that. And what it will do is it will slowly, it works a little bit like the First Refuser's bomb, but it does a lot more morale-based damage first. So we'll do a ton of morale damage over time. Very nice for causing morale, especially against Angband forces, or really any unit that's kind of struggling. Angband can be particularly susceptible to this. And then it will, after the end, it will do a bunch of damage all at once. So you have a lot of opportunity to avoid it. I think it takes about 25 to 30 seconds to ramp up to the damage part of it. But once it does, it hits really, really hard. So it's sort of like an impending doom spell, where if you stay in that area for too long, then fate will catch up with you and claim you for its own. So kind of an interesting utility thing. It's not, I don't think you see tons of them. I think you can bring up to 2. And they also have, I think, 3 HP, which is, nope, they've got like 4, maybe even 5. So they're hard to get rid of. They're really more of a tar pit unit with a little bit of extra utility, but that spell does give them some cool things that they can do. Anyway, moving on, he's got Mariners of ALQUALONDE, Shoal Hunters, more Mariners, a whole bunch more Mariners. Nifridir is mixed in here as well. Looks like he's got some Peacekeepers of Olimar. Not the two-handed variant, but they are still armor-piercing, and they've got a little clutch of Precursor Javelins, which are just really extra damage. Looks like Buzzard's also got some Hearthguard of Tyrion, perhaps a few too many of the higher-end units here. Swan Guard from him as well, more Swan Guard, Sentries. So a lot of Sentries, a lot of Spearmen, a lot of things you'd expect from a Teleri-only army in Valinor, of course. And now that that's all taken care of, let's take a look at the attacking force, aka the red team, in more ways than one. House of Feanor here being played by Mevin. He's got some Footmen of Himring, and they are going to be fully upgraded here. That's their second or third armor upgrade. I believe it's their second, though. Archers of Himring going to have some armor upgrades as well. Quite hard to get rid of. Very, very sticky, and going to be kind of needed against the Teleri. They have a lot of missile prowess for sure. We have Defenders of Aglon as well. Potentially a very devastating unit. Really good at just kind of grinding up chaff, as many two-handed sword units happen to be. But the Teleri, of course, have some really nice choke points, so it'll be difficult, I think, to use these guys to the greatest of their ability. More Defenders here. Third unit of Defenders. More upgraded Archers of Himring. More Footmen of Himring. It might even be... Nope. Just, I think, 3 units of the Archers of Himring. Mevin generally likes to play really wide armies, so I expect to see quite a lot of mid-tiers here. We have some Riders of the Pass, detachment there, so some high-tier Horse Archers. Some more high-tier Horse Archers over here. Honestly, not a bad pick in a siege like this. They're very, very tanky with heavy armor. They've also got a shield value from the front, and they're able to move very quickly across the battlefield with some pretty beefy missile damage. I think their missile damage even goes as high as, like, maybe 9 or 10, so very deadly against the Teleri, so certainly not a bad pick. They are a little bit expensive. Looking like a whole bunch of them here, so at least 2 full units and probably a couple detachments as well. 3 full units, what do you know? 1. Oh my goodness, I've never seen this many Riders of the Pass at the same time, so we got 3 full units here. A detachment, I expect maybe there's another detachment hanging around somewhere. And it's looking like most of Mevin's army. It's going to be certainly a tough fight for them, not having a lot of the really nice tools that they would need, like the javelins and so forth. But let's see, up here on the mountain, we've got Tundra's Fox. He's got a bunch of Riders of the Pass himself. He's also got some Accursed of ALQUALONDE, just an absolute blender unit. Pardon me, I think I may be getting a little bit of a cold. Accursed of ALQUALONDE, they're a heavy infantry. They can upgrade their armor to be absolutely tanky, one of the tankiest units in the game once they're upgraded. And they've got Relentless at really high attack values. Absolute blender lords against pretty well everything that the Teleri have except for the high tiers. So really nice units. If they're able to get into combat, this can be an absolute game changer for sure, for sure. Defenders of Aglon can be mixed in there as well with, looks like some Himring Cavalry. Yeah, so we've got attachment here. They're going to have Hunter Javelins instead of the usual harassment. Defenders of Aglon. Ooh, some Requiting Magloro. Not too bad. A bit risky bringing high-tier cavalry like this in a siege, but they can certainly be used to spearhead breakthroughs and things like that. A very potentially devastating unit. Defenders of Aglon. Archers of Himring. They're going to have their armor upgrades as well. Looks like a ton of armor upgrades. Full upgrades for the Footmen of Himring as well. And I think that's going to do. I expect we're going to see fairly close armies with a little bit of variation. Some people having more Riders of the Pass or Cavalry of Himring, etc., etc. Moving on now to the House of Ingolfin, who are going to most likely have the most potent infantry force on the field, so we'll see what they're able to get done today. And they're going to be played by Alexios. He's got Blade Masters of Baron Eiffel, second unit there of the Blade Masters, a whole whack of Mariners of Vinumar. These are an interesting little hybrid unit. I won't talk too much about them because I have done so in the past already. But essentially they are a hybrid sort of medium infantry Noldor and javelin unit, obviously. But in particular they have Hunter Javelins. They've only got 2 per model, which is different from, I think, the 4 that the dedicated units will have. But of course they benefit from infantry bonuses, whereas other units of skirmishers do not. So that's a nice little thing here. It gives them a little bit of extra armor piercing, which has become much more important in the new meta after the public patch release. And they've got some numbers as well that we can add to the Fingolfin army. Pardon. More House of Fingolfin troops here. We got some Marksmen of Bared Ithel. These guys are going to have their armor upgrades, actually. Let's see what they look like there. And I believe there's a second unit that indeed does not have. That's probably the difference between the two. Marksmen of Bared Ithel, exceptional high-end marksmen. I think that archers are in a really good place right now, and especially higher tier archers. Now, Noldor archers, probably a little bit on the more niche end of things, just because of the amount of numbers that they have. But they have really good accuracy, really good range, and great ammo, and just high-end damage. Damage that's enough that it can even threaten like medium troops with, you know, middling shield values from the front. So that's pretty damn nice. And we'll see what they're able to get done today. Certainly some of those Teleri units, like the sentries, are gonna fear them for sure. Over here we have some Armitar of Bared Ithel, which is sort of a higher-end sword unit that is a detachment size, but it is quite elite and very scary. Looks like we've got maybe 2 units of Armitar there. I don't think either of them have, pardon me, their upgrades, but you'll certainly notice when they do. Up front here we got 2 Bladesmen of Bared Ithel, a lot of sword units. It's kind of what Fingolfin really specializes in. And we've got some more of those higher end units, and that's what the armor upgrade looks like. And these are going to be the Harumatar, the 2-handed variant, sort of an elite version of the swordsman, or blade masters rather, of Bared Ithel. And we've got the Airimo Arantad in here as well, which are the personal bodyguard of King Fingolfin himself. In fact, you should be able to see him in one of these 2 units, and that is him right there, the High King. And they've changed a little bit, actually. I believe they now have Relentless. They're much smaller. They give really strong morale buffs to things around them. It's one of the things that Fingolfin does really well, is that they're great at using morale buffing to keep troops in the fight for an exceptionally long time. And that Relentless makes them certainly formidable fighters, and the high melee defense that being a sword Noldor unit in Fingolfin grants them is just really can't understate it. So potentially a game-changing army here. Very, very good at carving its way through choke points, lots of damage, lots of supporting missile units as well, but they certainly have their work cut out for them. Moving on now to the fourth and final army here for the attackers. We have the Left Hand of God, who's actually quite new. So there's a few things in here that you'll probably notice, like he doesn't have armor upgrades for all of the things. So makes it a little bit, pardon me, a little bit tougher. But he does really, really well. But, you know, mistakes get made. Give him a little bit of a breakdown in the comment section. 2 Defenders of Aglon here, which is always nice. A 3rd, in fact. 2 units of Footmen of Himring, unfortunately without their armor upgrades. 1 unit of Footmen over here. And that's going to bring us to a grand total of 4 with the addition of that one. Otoran Maitimo, a Crested of ALQUALONDE, absolutely devastating unit. Requeni Maglaurel, perhaps a little bit too much money here. And then 3 units of Archers of Himring and a unit of the Detachment Mounted Company of Himring with those heavy javelins. So, let's go ahead and get this started. Actually, there's another unit here, a Footman of Himring. So the 5th one is now being brought forward. And they're already beginning to approach here. I'm not sure if I actually counted this one, so there could be between 5 to 6 units of those footmen. And they're just going to take an absolute beating. Now, this game is going to start quite slow. There's going to be a lot of just kind of probing defenses, looking for ways in, as of course there is in any siege that involves people who are quite good at playing Medieval 2 and really want to play it strategically. So a lot of, like, if we were to take our armies right now and to try and maybe sally, do something unexpected like that, we'd be in a lot of trouble because we don't really have any of the strong cavalry support that Valinor does have available, because those are locked up in the Noldor units. A little bit of peppering going in here from the harassment jabs, not really doing a whole heck of a lot. Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 guys every volley if you're lucky. And these footmen of Himring are just kind of hanging out here, and they're actually going to soak up a lot of ammunition. And it's not really going to do too much. Because, of course, they are quite heavily armored. Now, if only they had their armor upgrades, they'd be doing even better. But yeah, so these guys are just kind of being brought forward. I'm not really sure what the intent here is. I think this is maybe just sort of a new player thing, like maybe he's trying to suck up as much ammunition as he possibly can, and he certainly does that. I think he sucks up the javelins from like maybe, ooh, that sounds suggestive, from at least 2 units of these Tulare Mariners. So that's quite a lot of ammunition, but I'm expecting them to be thrown into the front line, and I'm expecting these Swan Guard to kind of struggle against them. So I want to thin them out as best as I'm able. I'm also going to try and use some of my Shoal Hunters in there, see if we can get that split shot on display. Yeah, you can kind of see it there, but a lot of these are just going to hit the side of the bridge, and already they're not going to do a ton. So, you know, 2 or 3 volleys in, and haven't really managed to do anything with the footmen of Hemring here. So we're going to change tack and maneuver some of our troops here, try to give ourselves a little bit of a better firing angle. Same sort of situation out on this end. I've got some Mariners here, and we're just going to try to take bites out of them. We are going to run into a similar problem. So one thing I didn't really do, and it can be easy to forget to do when you're looking top down, is that I didn't really like zoom all the way down and see what the firing arc was. So we're actually going to see a lot of wastage here, which is unfortunate. A bunch of things hitting the water, hitting the side of the bridge, and these guys are going to take maybe, you know, 1 casualty per volley. So it really does mitigate that there. And let's pop on over to the other side. It looks like some aggressive posturing here from Tundra's Fox. Maybe trying to push some of these Shoal Hunters out of the way. And honestly, they trade reasonably well. I'm going to pop off another volley there, maybe kill, you know, 3 or 4 more of these guys. Captain Gervais is going to make sure that he stays gone, but honestly, chasing these guys not a good idea. Riders of the Pass, naturally being a mounted unit and having a shield, do have a little bit lower range than a lot of other archers. So they do have to expose themselves somewhat, but their range is far in excess of these poor little Shoal Hunters of ALQUALONDE. So this is really the last thing that they want to do, is kind of break cover and move out to follow these guys. You can see how quick they can still move. Heavy cavalry from the House of Feanor is a little bit faster than other heavy cavalry units, so they can certainly outmaneuver you, and that's definitely what Tundra's Fox is doing right now. And I think it's gonna be fairly quiet for a little while, so let's just zoom through here, get a sense for the layout on the city of ALQUALONDE, and I appreciate some of the details that Mr. Rex has poured into it. Pop back on over to the other side. So taking more bites out of the footmen of Hemring, trying to use my Mariners to do that. Again, I'm well aware of how scary these units can be in a drag down, kind of slap it out grind fest. So again, very suggestive. I should work on that before they demonetize me. Anyway, but yeah, I'm well aware of how strong they can be, and using Mariners to kind of bring them out is, to my mind, fairly worth it, because I do have more, and then we've got more throughout the city. So I'm more than willing to use a little bit of ammo here to try and trim these guys down a bit. Really taking a beating and only gone down to 75 men. Really a testament to, even without their armor upgrades, how hard to shift these kinds of units can certainly be without the right tools. The Gulfin now, moving on to the front lines here. We've got some Bladesmen of Barad Eithel, and I am getting ready. Got my units of Swan Guard here, ready to try and attack them as they come out of the water. Once they're in the water, they actually do take, I believe, some combat penalties, penalties to fatigue and things like that. So if I can attack them on the water, or just make them kind of come up into the shore against shield-walled spears, the Swan Guard of ALQUALONDE actually can do very, very well for themselves while quickly depleting the fighting strength and tenacity of their enemies, which we're going to need every advantage we can get, because the Bladesmen of Barad Eithel, especially Fingolfin swordsmen, I mean, they've got the chops, you know, to cut their way even through that with all those advantages stacked against them. Or I should say disadvantages stacked against them. Marksmen of Barad Eithel, moving on up here to the hill. Looks like we're going to see some skirmishing and like trading of damage here pretty quickly. My Tulare doing very well, a little bit bunched up here, and that is going to increase the rate of casualties against this House of Feanor unit, which is unfortunate for them. They don't quite have the numbers that we do, for sure. They have the quality, the training, the armor, most of the things anyway that they need to get the job done, but you can't willingly throw units kind of under the bus like this. So spreading them out, similar to how I've done over here, it does help mitigate the amount of losses. I am going to focus fire him down as well. I'm going to bring forward some of my Shoal Hunters, try and do as much damage to these things as possible, because I'm well aware that we can get shot to death, absolutely, by these archer units with all of our artillery, light infantry, and things like that. If they had enough archers, absolutely, they could grind us down without ever having to expose their infantry to a close quarters fight. Now, always just staying out of sort of sword's reach. So we really want to try and thin this down as much as we can, because it's just such a danger, especially moving in to the later game. We don't have, I think, quite as many. Well, we maybe got an equivalent number of units of archers, but things like the Marksman and Baradith will actually have increased ammunition and range and things like that. But yeah, moving into the kind of later game, if someone's got a full unit of archers that still has ammunition, it can be the difference between victory and defeat, which sounds dramatic, but it's absolutely true. Pop on over to the other side now. Looks like maybe some fun stuff starting to happen here. So the House of Feanor has now moved forward. Footman of Himring in loose formation, threatening this particular choke point, but it looks like there's several ways in here. This is going to be a difficult one, I think, for them to defend, that plays a little bit more into the strengths of the House of Feanor. They like to have things open where maneuverability can be a thing, and they can bring some of those strong units to bear all at the same time, really. Especially if they're able to kind of sneak around here with those two-handed swordsmen. This could really be something difficult for Buzzard to defend in the long term, for sure. And this as well, this little area here is quite exposed, so if they were to bring up their own archers, horse archers, Mevin certainly has tons of them, he'd be able to get in here, pop off a few shots, and then retreat before the artillery can really get their stuff together and attack back. A big, ugly charge here from Tundra's Fox. I don't know if they're going to get away in time, or they might just, nope. That little back rank there is going to get absolutely gobbled up, and some spearmen are going to be moved forward from Buzzard to make sure that these guys stay gone. Tundra's Fox probably doesn't want to stay around and slug it out with these guys for too long, but they will actually conk a few of those Swan Guard on the head as they leave. And the armor piercing they get from their maces, yeah, it's very scary indeed. And so, yeah, kind of a nice little bite here that they took out of them. And when you're playing as the defenders, little bites like this, little bits of cost efficiency, it does add up over time. So not exactly game winning at the moment, but certainly it can shape up that way as the battle progresses. Let's see what we got going on up here. It looks like maybe some of them are beginning to move forward. Footman of Himring, just kind of biding their time. There's a big shield wall here backed up with some Vanyar and some Grieving Sons, so they probably don't want to move in there just yet, now without significant support from the rest of the army and their allies. Let's pop back on over to the other side, as that is where a lot of the action is going to be. We can see here some of the House of Feanor troops have actually moved in, and this is a surprisingly good place for the Swan Guard to be. I was really impressed by their performance here, being in shield wall, fighting against a depleted unit of footmen in this tiny choke point where the Noldor can't really overlap you and flank you and things like that. It really is a big, what's the word I'm looking for here? Force multiplier, essentially. Meanwhile, over here, Swan Guard doing their best to hold back the storm, and Fingolfin says the defeat is certain, but honestly, this is going to shift back and forth. Look at that; it's already a victory is a distinct possibility. So these Swan Guard here, especially with the support that they're getting from the rest of the army there, these guys are not going to be able to hold the line nearly as long as I would like them to. Meanwhile, over here, Feanor really pouring troops in, perhaps too much. It's going to be a big old blob down here, and a lot of these units actually won't be able to attack. This is something that I see a lot of newer people do. I assume the operating assumption at play here is that more is better, but not necessarily, because these units here will get tired over time, and they're not really, with the exception of a small pocket here, not really able to get their way to the front lines where they can actually attack. Now, this can be useful when you're using a spear unit to kind of lead the way. Spear units and shield wall have increased mass, so you can use them to kind of bully people out of place. And following that up with a big push of a whole bunch of blob troops, something that can certainly work. Lots of ways to punish that, of course, in a siege, artillery, and things like that, but we don't have that today. Unfortunately, we don't have their spears This is maybe a bit ill-advised, but they're also not doing too bad. Up here, we can see some defenders of ALQUALONDE, defenders of Aglon moving in, and again, the spear's really performing quite a tier or two above their price tag. But I suppose that is to be expected a little bit, given the excellent defensive positions that we have available to us here. So we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll see how they're doing. They're also getting some support here from Mariners. I've got some archers up here who I think have fired a couple of volleys off. My other unit of archers, unfortunately, getting absolutely brutalized by some focus fire from the other side. And they're going to be forced to commit to melee now and try and hold this back because, yeah, things are starting to turn a little bit here as the House of Feanor pushes and muscles their way onto the shoreline. We do our best to kind of rain down missiles and destruction upon them, but yeah, this is definitely going to be a tough one. This side, reinforcements being brought in. I think I maybe brought a second unit of Swan Guard in here. Indeed, I did. So there's 2 units of Swan Guard. Bladesmen now being brought forward. And they're also getting a little bit of support from missiles and things like that up on the hill. So things have kind of stabilized for us over here for the time being. Let's pop back on over to the other side. Let's see how the House of Feanor is starting to fare. Looks like they finally moved up here. So the Footmen of Himring kind of going toe-to-toe with the Swan Guard of ALQUALONDE. There's been lots and lots of support here from these Mariners, certainly, that has kind of evened this out a little bit, but now they are starting to take the upper hand. Second unit, of course, available if a second wave is ever needed. And things are progressing relatively slowly on this side, at least for the time being. Otorn Mighty Mo, a whole bunch of things here have already entered into the city. Going toe-to-toe with the Swan Guard of ALQUALONDE, I would expect the Footmen of Himring to be able to, slowly but surely anyway, the Swan Guard do have really strong defensive capabilities. This is kind of the only thing they're good at, but I would expect them to be able to break through eventually. Buzzard, maybe. No, not spread thin at all. It looks like Mevin hasn't really committed too much to this side. Over here, it looks like Nifrido the Shadow Hunter sparring with some of Mevin's riders of the pass in their Cabrian circle formation. Does make it harder for missiles to hit them, so it can be a nice thing for helping soak up ammunition and damage. Otorn Mighty Mo being brought forward, probably with an armor upgrade, which I think puts them at like 20 armor. So they're not even afraid, I think, of some of these missiles up here. Yeah, they have more than enough defensive capability to just kind of shrug that fire off. Meanwhile, all these Riders of the Past just kind of out here in plain sight, trying to take bites out of these sentries and skirmishers. And so far, honestly, they're not doing bad. Look at this, barely any casualties on this side, and they've managed to cut down over 30, I think, of the sentries of ALQUALONDE. So really nicely done right there. And they've got plenty of ammunition, so they can keep this up for quite some time. Now some of the Shoal Hunters here from Nifrido the Shadow Hunter beginning to come under fire. This looks really great for the defenders, but honestly, it might be a little bit deceiving. I think that those horse archers are really going to have their way with these exposed skirmishers in their more elevated positions. Meanwhile, over here, some troops being pulled by Nifrido the Shadow Hunter to try and hold the line. Oh, someone shooting fire arrows. Looks like they're killing the last of a detachment here of Riders of the Past, probably almost out of ammunition, and always, of course, is useful to help soak up ammunition. Just 2 little models here, not really much of a threat, probably not even worth shooting at. And it looks like maybe Captain Gervais's archers up there have kind of realized that, now they're going to try and conserve some ammunition. Mariners of ALQUALONDE being brought down here, not too sure what their purpose is. Defenders of Aglon now being brought forth, and the Footmen of Himring having a field day against the Swan Guard here. Slowly but surely hacking their way through, even with that slight hill disadvantage. Oof, some nasty support units coming in. This is really the only way that Valinor is ever going to win this, is intelligent and effective use of their skirmishers. It's really the only thing that they have over the Sons of Feanor, who pretty much outclass them in basically every other area. Let's take one more look over here just to see what's going on and what to expect. Some archers, footmen being brought forward, and it looks like maybe another front is about to open up here. So we're going to pop back on to the other side, and we'll come back and see how things progress in just a few moments. More Feanor troops being funneled in here, and it looks like we're going to be able to hold it, at least for now. These troops, you gotta hand it to them. This is a rough position to be in. This is not easy, even for high-quality Noldor infantry, and they're kind of just holding the line. They're slowly but surely kind of dragging down a lot of my troops with them. More reinforcements now being brought in. Defenders of Aglan, I think, shunted up here would be very well placed to help break this line. So hopefully it doesn't just funnel right in here. This would be something to try and force path your troops up here and try and break through this little thin part of the line. If you look over here, very thick on this side, but over here, much thinner, much easier to break. So certainly something to keep in mind for your own battle. Now over here, it looks like they've managed to break through successfully. Defenders of Aglan smashing their way in, but I have actually seen this coming and brought forth my own grieving sons to really punish these guys. Let's see if I can get one more volley off here, and indeed they will, and that's gonna hurt. These are proper hunter javelins. We'll claim a few of my grieving sons. Oof. Let's see if this guy manages to get away. I don't think so. I think he's caught in an endless loop here, and down he goes. A little bit of support from up here. Looks like Captain Gervais is helping my own Sentries of ALQUALONDE, who are going to rain down death and pain from above on top of the Defenders of Aglan. They're going to be forced to turn around and try and consolidate this position here. So I've got my own Mariners, just kind of, I'm ready to sacrifice them essentially by trying to deal as much damage to the House of Feanor as I possibly can. And they're kind of gaining the upper hand here. This is locked in a stalemate, but they've effected a pretty nice breakthrough. Although I think this would be an excellent time to use some of this heavy cavalry and just start to clear things out. And the fact that they're not is a little bit of a misstep, I believe. Now, they've got a toehold here. They've got more or less what they need, but they need to funnel some more infantry across there, and especially those requening Maglor. They're more than able to weather the storm from a lot of these missile units, and they are a big threat. They're certainly going to push a lot of these lighter troops here, including the Grieving Sons, out of position. Now, the Grieving Sons have begun to move forward, so that window is closed. It was only very brief, but if they were brought forward and just kind of smashed across here, then I might not be able to get them back into position in time. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there, at least in my humble opinion. There's Vinyamar kind of pushing their way through here, exploring some opportunities. They could just get some troops down here. One nice downhill cavalry charge would be basically all they need to route this entire wing here, and to just shunt more of their troops right across. How are we doing over here? Bladesmen doing their best, but they've been pushed back into the water now. Mariners have been brought forward. I think they've basically killed the 2 units of spears that were sent against them. Yeah, indeed they have. So you gotta hand it to them. They've done their job, certainly. Hacked their way through a few hundred Teleri, and now they're in the process of doing the same to another unit. But I think these 40, 50 or so Bladesmen are not long before this will. Meanwhile, over here, it looks like a winning situation for the most part for these elves, but they are really having slow going here, trying to hack their way through the Teleri. So some successes, some not so great things for the defenders and the attackers both. Let's pop back on over to the other side and see how things are going. Looks like Mevin has now begun to engage. Got those footmen in there, and they seem to be doing just fine. But there is a little bit of a hill problem here that is going to make this a little bit more painful, I think, than it would otherwise be under normal conditions. Archers of Himring in a great spot here, really just picking on these poor little Swan Guard. Surprisingly not killing as many of them as you'd expect, but that is on the shielded side. Mariners of ALQUALONDE going to move in and sort of intervene. And a big general attack here, it looks like, from Nifredir, who is just going to try and push them completely out of position. And now they've exposed themselves a little bit to the archers. I probably wouldn't move these guys off too far. I'd even just stick them under here and just let them do their thing. Over here, got some Otorn Mighty Mo. Looks like they've taken perhaps some damage here. Oof, nasty. Maybe some javelins or something managed to shoot them from behind. That's never good. Riders of the Past just sort of spinning to win, not really doing a whole lot. Probably stop them doing this because it does take fatigue and tires them out perhaps needlessly. But let's look at some of the damage they've done here. Not too bad. Not too bad. And they've basically pushed all those skirmishers off of the wall since they weren't getting anything done against those archers to begin with. Mevin now bringing forward some more reinforcements. Hopefully that's going to be enough for him to be able to break his way through. Now, House of Feanor really pushing hard in here. Looks like they've managed to partially at least break through some of Nifridyr's defenses. More and more troops pouring in here from Mevin, and that is going to undermine this really strong sally here. Looks like this is maybe starting to turn around, so this could be a bit of a moment of truth here. And if you're the Shadowhunters bringing in some crisis troops, the Peacekeepers of Valimar, but it might be that they just try a general retreat here. Yeah, these troops might get surrounded. You might be able to save some of them though, so Mevin having some great success so far. Let's take a pop down here and see how Tender's Fox is doing. It looks quite bloody. This little alleyway here is just stained with the blood of Noldor and Teleri. And Tender's Fox still at this initial choke point, but a nice rear charge here. It might just be enough. It was a little bit anemic, actually. Let's see if he's able to kind of straighten things out here and do it again. Or maybe he's just going to pull off and try and catch some of these retreating Teleri. It's obviously not a bad idea, but I think this is more of a guarantee. There's a good chance here that they're going to smash their way through, and they kind of need it. They're about 12% behind so far. Although I can guarantee you that when all is said and done, that is not going to last. A big charge here from those Requeni Maglorum are going to absolutely flatten these sentries if they manage to get some decent momentum, which unfortunately they don't. Still going to hurt though. Going to push their way on through here, basically immune to these Port Slingers. Nifridir, the Shadowhunter, has these guys literally backed into a corner. So let's see what happens. Ooh, they're going to turn around. And again, not much of a charge. I guess they're having trouble getting the momentum necessary in order to actually activate that. Shoalhunter's not doing too bad. Swan Guard, I think, here defending a little nest of Mariners. Two-handed spears in the back. That's going to be enough to put the Fear of God into the Requeni. Finally, a decent charge. Look at that. Look at those sentries absolutely melt. The Swan Guard here possibly trying to catch those heavy units, but I don't think this is a great thing to chase. Footmen of Himring going to be able to smash in there. Riders of the Past now have undermined this defensive area, and the Requeni Maglorum are going to go on for more glory. Nice little charge here into the rear of Nifridir, the Shadowhunter troops, and they will break pretty much immediately. But I don't think any of them are going to be able to make it back to any sort of town center to reinforce the defenders. Bam, off they go. And what are they at now? About 7% difference. So they are starting to catch up a little bit. And now Nifridir and his allies might just be forced to completely abandon this area. Yeah, more of these troops have been caught. This area has been broken through. Very nicely done. Some great support and some tactics here from both sides. About 6% difference. Let's pop back on over to this side and see how things are going. I think this is probably the area that the attackers are struggling the most to take, though they have managed to force their way across this initial defense here, flooding more and more troops in. The Teleri have basically fallen back on this end. I think the main defense effort now is going to be right over here. So you can see some of these mounted company, unfortunately, getting a little bit stuck here. They did push forward quite far. A lot of these units, I think, basically just ran around them to both cut off their retreat and intercept any incoming reinforcements. Up here, it looks like some of the Armitar have actually managed to undermine the defense here as well. And they're getting in to Nifridir, the Shadowhunter. Shoalhunters, slowly but surely cutting them to pieces. More troops now pouring in. Blade Masters of Barad Ithel. It's a great idea. This is an excellent opportunity to really put some pressure on. Oh yeah, beautiful. These guys are out in the open, very exposed. This is perfect grounds for those Vinyamars to really get a lot of value. Oh yeah, look at that, eh? Really just taking a bite out of these Plaza Guards. Looks like Buzzard's trying to get in there, trying to body block a little bit for these Hydra Spearmen, and he will finally get there, and that should staunch the bleeding a little bit. But another 1 or 2 volleys, and this unit probably would have evaporated down to about 30% strength, which isn't much. Now, looks like they've managed to kind of get... Oh no, the Armitar really pushing their way in there, and trying to undermine the defense effort from the other side. Marines of Vinyamar now pushing in. Going to try and take these guys on from the front. That's going to be tough for sure. I'm not sure that the Armitar are really the best target for this. I probably would have brought in something else, almost anything else, but maybe the Alexius is kind of down to just what he's got here. I think a lot of his frontline units have been not necessarily wasted, but like killed on the crossing here. But that being said, House of Feanor still has a card to play, a Crest of ALQUALONDE moving in, along with some Otor Mighty Mo. That is certainly going to be enough, I think, to bust their way through here. I don't think we've really got too many other elites. It's just a lot of like Teleri light infantry, and if we look at it here now, they're about 6% difference from one another, so they've really come back, really managed to claw their way back into the game here, the attackers. Some Blade Masters nearby, and this is a really strong defensive position. They are able to put a lot of pressure into troops as they approach here, but I think they have the numbers for sure. Finally, this area is broken through the Rumitar, pushing their way in. Looks like a little bit of a bug pathfinding issue here. Hopefully left-handed gods able to figure that out. Yeah, tons of Feanor troops here, and a fully nerfed Fighting Knight Laura. So if there's any sort of breakthrough here, and those units are able to push themselves in and get behind the lines here, that's going to be bad news bears. One moment of shame, I actually did manage to skewer a whole bunch of my horse archers, so I actually ended up killing them off almost entirely. And poor little Rex had the same problem here, skewering himself on my own stakes. These are meant for the Feanor cavalry, especially this. One nice kind of nasty tactic you can do is hide things in here that look like easy prey for cavalry, and because people usually play nice and zoomed out like this, you might not see it, right? And then cavalry will impale themselves on here. So that's kind of what I was trying to do, but really I've done more damage to my own team than I have good. Footmen of Hemring, some of the more tired troops being pushed in here. Reinforcements coming in from myself, in fact, Mariners of ALQUALONDE. Blade Masters now being committed to the fray. Probably over here would be a good place for them to go, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Maybe he's trying to kind of get them in here against the Plaza Guardians, trying to just mob those things and cut down as many of those elite spearmen as he can, because that's really the linchpin of this defense here, is the fact that there are a whole bunch of Plaza Guardians mixed in here. Well, let's pop over to this side and see if there's anything else going on here. Nope, doesn't look like it. Well, let's see how the defense efforts are going in the north. It looks like a bridge of death has been established. This is going to be tough, I think, for the attackers, especially not having a lot of things like the Rangers of Hellevorn, for example, who are quite able to punish big blobbed up groups of especially elite infantry like the Peacekeepers of Valimar. That would be the perfect unit to have in this kind of situation, and unfortunately they don't have access to it. The same goes for artillery. This would be a lot harder for the Teleri to hold, I think, if there was like a catapult or two on the other side for sure. But as it is, the Nold are going to have to use their superior quality arms, armor, and training to try and batter their way through here. I don't know how well that's going to go. They've certainly got some numbers for sure, but now that the defenders are across onto this little island, there's really no way through but forward. So we'll see what they're able to get done here. Some more footmen have been brought forward. I think there's more of those Vanyar spearmen in there. So this, I think, is where the game is going to begin to slow down a little. Aside from over here, where fighting is quite fierce. This is a tough one for sure. They're maybe trying to muscle their way through a little bit too much, which I don't think is a good idea. There's a decent amount of AP in here, and I think that trying to muscle your way in with heavy infantry is going to end up being a big mistake that just gets a lot of people killed. Well, I'm going to go ahead, actually we'll turn up to about 2 times speed here and see what they're able to get done. Pretty solid effort here from the House of Feanor. Looks like maybe they've backed off a little bit. Some archers across the bridge. Maybe they're trying to push over onto this side. Looks like Captain Gervais has actually moved forward here and looking to intercept these guys, have a little bit of a sally of his own. 20 Maglora here from Left-Handed God. Not necessarily where you want to have these horsemen. I mean, they could probably kill a lower end spear unit like this from the front, but it's not the most efficient use. We're just going to get pummeled and pummeled and pummeled by all those missile troops. Finally getting a halfway decent charge here. Smashing into the second line. And really, this is great, but there needs to be something to follow this up. Well, they do have the Accursed breaking through. They're absolutely blending their way through the Swan Guard here, having taken almost no casualties in the turn. He's able to get them through here and smash into the front of a couple of these units here. This, I don't think it's going to be a win, but it would certainly be impactful, I think, in terms of thinning out the amount of manpower available to the defenders. And we're still holding pretty strong, I think, at about 6% difference between the two sides. I'm going to get one nice charge here. I think so. A brutal close-range charge going to absolutely flatten those sentries. And even carry forth into the Grieving Suns, killing quite a lot here. Feanor General is in there, though. That's something the Left-Handed God definitely wants to be careful about. Losing his general now could undermine basically everything else that he's trying to do, so definitely want to be careful about that. And a little bit of mass pushing here. This is something that we've seen from the attackers a few times now. I don't think it's the best idea. I can understand the idea behind it, but I don't think it's really providing the effects that they're hoping, and they just don't have the manpower or the unit types to really risk doing that. There goes the Feanor General. Bad news. Grieving Suns fighting with the Accursed, though, is always a fun thing to see. Oof. One of those Princes of the Teleri getting brutally executed there by a vengeful Noldor swordsman. But this, yeah, see, this is exactly why I don't recommend doing this sort of thing, because these units can just be pulled back, and then this unit here just needs to, they need to keep chasing, or they need to try and get behind the front line. But there's not enough of them to really make that worth it. And so they're just going to overextend and get themselves kind of stuck here. But let's witness the beautiful last stand of these Accursed of ALQUALONDE, who've already been accursed before committing the war crimes that they're currently engaged in, but don't think about it too hard. Actually doing pretty well. This was a full unit here of Mariners, I think. There's like 140 of them, or 120 or something. We've got some light bowmen charging in. They will claim a few of the Accursed, but they're actually going to attack back. You can see some of those swordsmen now beginning to fall. Well, you can't really stun these guys to death. It's really the thing that sets them apart and makes them the beefy damage dealers that they are. You can see Teleri falling in droves, but I don't think it's going to be I think the Accursed here are probably a few moments away from destruction. Still, not doing too bad. All things considered, taking on the Grieving Suns, 2 other units of Teleri all at the same time. There they go. Now they're going to break, kind of fight to the death a little bit. But a valiant effort, but now I think the Noldor on this side in a little bit of trouble. They maybe spread themselves a little bit too thin. They had a good thing going on over here. They had the numbers, and they would have been able to, you know, push their way through here and just grind things down by attrition. But now, it's not looking like that. It's looking like things have kind of thinned out a little bit. So let's see where we're at. 7% difference, so still relatively close. A little bit of limited support here from Alexios. Still trying to pick away. Some of the Peacekeepers now have been brought forward as well. I think the two-handed spears have basically been annihilated. More macemen being thrown down, which is exactly what the Doctor orders. And a little bit of a face-off here between bodyguards. Now, there's a lot of the Adon Tower on the ground, but I think Fingolfin is actually supporting them with the Hunter Javelins from the Marines over there. So not a bad thing at all. Lots of dead bodyguard units here in the ground. And the High King himself struggling against Eonwe and his bodyguard. You can actually see Eonwe right there. Going back and forth, toe-to-toe with these guys. And I don't think they're going to be too long for this world. Looks like Eonwe has maybe set his sights on the High King himself. But it's going to be too late. One of the Adepts of Tulkat's going to take him down. And there's Alexios' bodyguard, and now the defender is going to be resurgent, I think. Some more troops being brought in and stationed up on the high ground, and I think they're going to destroy what's left of the troops over on this side. Now, let's see. Some archers here. Looks like Mevin. Let's move his cavalry over here and allow them to kind of cool down a bit. Some Roquini Magloro from Thunderous Fox as well, and then brought forth. But they don't have a lot of supporting infantry, which is really where those units can shine, right? That mobility allowing them to attack and retreat from unexpected angles quickly, and then the infantry kind of hold the ground that they've taken. But against Let's see what we got here. Not really a lot of spears. Roqueni could probably beat these guys down, I would think. Oh, I do have some Grieving Suns here. I remember this moment, trying to move them forward to block the Roqueni if I can. These guys have a lot of melee defense, so it does give them some defense against the AP of the Grieving Sun. And that's just going to tie them down a little bit and allow the Mariners up here to really do the dirty work. Yeah, there you go. Those javelins coming down from the heights, slowly but surely claiming the lives of some of these Roqueni, and they're actually going to retreat from there after killing like over half of my remaining unit. Oh, I probably wouldn't turn them around. Maybe over here wouldn't have been the worst idea. Could have assassinated my general, which would have been great. Not great for me, but certainly great for their efforts here. Getting into the sentries now. Should have no problem, even with their limited numbers, just hacking their way through the sentries. They're not really anything special in close quarters. The Grieving Sun's now being brought in to try and trap these guys, kill the last of them, while more and more support comes down. I think bringing them across here and just having them fight solo was a little bit of a doomed enterprise, for sure. And there's all this extra support over here that could have been used to help them out right now. There's not really experiment and stuff over here, so all those guys in tandem with the Roqueni Maglora when there's still 21 of them, that would have been quite the menace. But unfortunately, a little bit of a miss micro. Perhaps Mevin is busy elsewhere rather. Let's pop back on over to the other side and see how they are faring. Looks like they're still stuck on the Bridge of Doom. Again, really tough situation for them to be in. There's not a ton of tools to dislodge defenders in a very narrow choke point like this. In this particular scenario, and I mean, normally they would have the tools. They'd have javelins, they'd have more light infantry bows, they'd have artillery and things like that, but no, it's just brute strength and brute strength alone. And sometimes the numbers end up winning out, no matter how elite your infantry are. So yeah, it's very, very, very slow going over here. I think some of this cavalry should probably be, like, this would be the gambit to play while you still have the Roqueni Maglora, right? So we have a couple of mid defeats here. But this would be the gambit to play while you still have the Roqueni Maglora, right? So bringing all that cav over here and having them fight. All at the same time. Instead, some of these Riders of the Pass, yeah, you get a nice little charge into some of my units here, but there are still spearmen, like really genuinely scary spearmen. So, not a lot of coordination, I think, here from the older players when they really, really needed it. Like a nice coordinated strike with the Roqueni leading the way probably could have killed all of this. There's no spears in here. It's mostly kind of little infantry units that can be surrounded or charged down with not a lot of melee defense. Aside from this small unit here of the Swan Guard. That I think would have been the play, but unfortunately, yeah, look at that. Look at that charge here. Brutal. Flattening those front ranks. So they're able to just kind of get out of there before there's really any response. So if these were all brought together, I think, and used as sort of a mailed fist to punch their way through, I think that would have done a lot. That being said, they do still have a card to play. Lots of infantry showing up, but it's worth noting that the fatigue on these units is quite low. It does affect them in many very hidden ways. More troops coming down, all running. Not sure that the running would be the best plan, to be perfectly honest, but it seems like they're just abandoning this position entirely. So some defenders now being brought through here. Looks like they caught maybe some Teleri Mariners on the docks here and killed them off. 2 units of. Yeah, this Hunter Javelin's probably being used to target down the Vanyar if at all possible. Actually, it looks like they're mostly out of ammunition. Yeah, I think bringing these guys over to the other side, a little bit more coordination here, is what the attackers certainly need. 10% difference now. Riders of the Pass, not doing too bad, honestly. Cut their way through a good amount of Teleri, a little bit of an overextension there from Mr. Gervais. Oh, they are going to get caught here, I think. And a little rear charge from those sentries. now reinforcements have arrived. I think this whole area is basically free up. So the Teleri doing real well for themselves at this moment in time. Let's go ahead, turn up the speed a little bit as rise of the pass. Going to escape mostly, but not very many of them left. Still a few more over there. Small unit of Swan Guard from Captain Gervais here. Not going to take no for an answer. Along with some of the sentries, they're going to get picked apart. And the same is going to happen to the Swan Guard in fairly short order. They're going to be driven back across the river if any of them actually survive at all. Still a decent amount of troops here. Probably enough to break through and get around to the other side. But there's some aces in the hole. Let's see if we can find them here. So Buzzard is moving forward with now his reserves, which have not been engaged at all. Plaza Guardians. I've still got a few of my Adepts of Tolkas left, not too many. Some of his Maiar. Got a full unit of Shoal Hunters, I'm fairly positive. There goes a Feanor General, I believe. Fairly positive that Buzzard also has his own unit of Breathing Suns. This has now been locked down, so there's no options for them to push across here. I probably wouldn't even waste the troops on this, to be perfectly honest. There's just too much here, I think, for the defenders to cut their way through. Yeah, this defense has been bolstered. It's practically back up to where it was before all of this really began, which is gotta be quite intimidating, very demoralizing for the attackers. There they are. Buzzard's troops here. This is why it's so dangerous to have these guys lead the way. That's gonna hurt. And these guys are gonna get absolutely shredded here from those Grieving Suns. And this is really what the Grieving Suns are here to do. Hunt down high quality, high tier targets and just punish them, so that they can be of limited usefulness throughout the rest of the game. Very unfortunate. We saw how powerful this unit could be against the Teleri just a few moments ago, but they're basically getting cleaned up here in just a few moments, marching headlong into that arrow fire. There are some defenders nearby, but the attack here is not the most committal. Like, not everything is kind of being put forth at the same time, and so they're able to... the defenders are able to focus on particular people, and that's really, really bad. The Curse of ALQUALONDE already breaking, very sad for them. And we've got a really big difference here. I think this is going to be where it starts to run away towards an inevitable defender victory, but let's see here. Oh, some nasty damage being put into these poor defenders of Aglon. Let's see. They're going to be able to pull this back, but I really don't think so. I think this is a matter of time here before the defenders begin to just crumble in the face of this very renewed defender onslaught. And there they go. Looks like these guys are going to break. There is still more, though. You can see Tundra's Fox has the rest of his army coming down here. There's Nevin, actually. Some fresh heavy cavalry now finally being brought over, but again, a little bit too late. A lot of piecemeal attacks here. I think if all these things were brought together, given an opportunity to rest, even if just for a few minutes, and then thrown back across the water. Ooh, there's that projectile I talked about. It's not really going to do any damage to these guys, but it is very irritating. Damn, does it look cool. That is cinematic as hell. The Swan Guard don't appreciate having that thrown on top of them, but it's kind of what they're there for. Yeah, it's very disruptive. But that's pretty much all that it does. It's damn cool to watch, though. Yeah, that's wicked. There's the depths there doing their thing. Vanyar have now forded the river and are cutting down what remains of the cavalry here. Nevin's troops. Not going to be too long for this world unless he's able to pull them out of there. Tundra's Fox certainly on top of that, hightailing it out of there before those two-handed spears can sink their points into his cavalry. Archers of Himring doing their best. What are they firing at here? Probably firing at the Shoal Hunters for sure. Some Adepts coming this way. It looks like it's Buzzards, Adepts. A few residual explosions. What, Defenders and Footmen in there. Still some decent Feanor infantry to try and cut their way through, and all of this is just going down in the river, just an absolute drunken brawl. But I don't think there's too much left for the poor red team. Those archers are in a good spot to kind of really make a difference, but I don't know how long they're going to be able to hold here, especially not with the Plaza Guards hacking their way through the ragged remnants of the Feanor second line. Nice heavy cav. Of limited usefulness in this kind of situation, which is very unfortunate, though there is a big ol' gap here. That being said, there's plenty of things that could trap them if they came across, so I suppose it wouldn't be a good idea to push them across this way. But it looks like maybe they're going to try regardless. And I'm going to see it and throw some of my macemen in there just to try and slow them down a little bit. They should have no problem cutting their way through some of this light infantry, but we'll be able to give it back a little bit with those maces. And slowly but surely they will actually cut their way through here, but that's going to give plenty of time for the Grieving Sons here. So Captain Race has a full unit of Grieving Sons. He's probably going to decimate these guys. Let's see. Fox might see it. No, I think it's too late. I'm going to throw my Adepts in there too, because why not? Riders of the Past getting absolutely hammered here. That cavalry basically have slaughtered all those Shoal Hunters very quickly, but now they're going to make their match in the form of Grieving Sons. Another big volley there. Should be enough to cut them down. And more elite, bloodied troops that push their way across here. I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to be the death knell here of the red team's renewed offensive, not unless Mevin could pull out some kind of miracle, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's a lot of exhausted troops here. They might actually be able to cut their way through the Plaza Guardians here, which, you know, is always nice. Let's see if we can get a nice charge here. Doesn't look like he's going to have the opportunity, unfortunately. Oh, some of them will charge. There you go. A few of those spearmen are going to have a very bad time indeed. I'd probably just smash into the rear of them with the cavalry and try and get what damage done you possibly can. Yeah, tide's turning against the Plaza Guardians, but now that the cavalry of Himring has been pushed back and actually annihilated from the looks of it, looks like Valinor is going to be able to move across with all their defenders. That's basically game over here for poor Mevin's army, and I don't think there's too much left. I'll quickly pop back on over to the other side, and then we'll come back and witness the end for them. It looks like they're finally being pushed back here. No more reserves. Plenty of little Teleri blue heads here bobbing up and down, crashing their way through what remains of the Noldor. These defenders are going to rout. These footmen exhausted. No general, I think. Also going to rout. And that's going to be it. The Teleri are actually going to successfully defend themselves in this iteration of the Kinslaying. Really put an end to the Noldor's glorious history in Middle-earth right away, unfortunately. I think there was obviously a few mistakes the defenders made throughout this. There's a few opportunities that, and you know what, to be perfectly fair, it's really hard to see that at the time when you've got 10 different things going on. You're moving, you know, between two different fronts, trying to, you know, jockey for position, things like that. So obviously there's a few mistakes that were made there, but I think they probably should have had some more money as well. I think if it came down to it, some more numbers for the defenders here probably would have done well. I think most of these armies had, you know, 15 to 17 units in it, so if you're throwing in, you know, another 10 units across the entire team, then that it does make a really big difference. They probably would have had about as much as we had left over close to the end, and we would have had this drag on just a little bit more, perhaps to a different conclusion for sure. Defenders looking like they haven't had enough yet. And being led by their officers, they're going to go for one on the last glorious stand here against the Doomsmen. I don't expect they'll kill any of the Doomsmen, because they're all about survival. And then off they go. They'll be quite handily seen off there by the servants of Mandos. And that's going to be it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It wasn't as close, I think, as we all wanted it to be. But hopefully it's fairly clear why I think that was. Obviously there's a few mistakes here. There's mistakes in every game. It's easy to point them out. Not so easy to kind of recognize opportunities in real time, certainly. And I think they probably should have had a little bit more at the end of this, but nonetheless, it's a cool battle. We did this for fun. Hope you guys enjoy it. Certainly be more content coming up soon, and once I'm a little bit closer to it, I will let you guys know what's going on for Halloween this year, because I do have something planned for that as well. Take a look and see what did what. Buzzards, doesn't look like Buzzard spent necessarily a ton of time on the front lines, at least not with his really scary units. Mr. Gervais did very well there, especially with some of those Plaza Guardians, nasty things like that. Adepts did okay. Grieving Sons on my end did really well. I think I ended up with the most kills, or near enough to it. Yeah, the most kills for sure. Just because I spent the most time on the front lines, honestly. And I had two armies coming my way, and I was surprisingly enough able to hold the line fairly well, especially with a little bit of help from my allies, which I was definitely calling out for throughout the course of that game. In any case, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.